Hi, everybody. This is the Environmental Awareness Call with Dean Bell, Dean Kevin, Ryan, Tim, and Adrian. And today we're going to talk about the environment and how important it is to our survival. A video here by Jeff Lofton, who talks about urban permaculture. And it kind of always upset me that all this unused land is available. I mean, parking strips, highway, along the highway, all those areas that they just plant ice plant or oleanders or something. There's so many spaces in the urban environment that can be used for food production and other edibles and plants that serve a purpose rather than just sitting there absorbing carbon monoxide or whatever, absorbing trash. A lot of times people throw trash in these unused areas. Unused lots. There's so much land available. If you really take a look in the city, I mean, it's a cement city, cement jungle, but still there's places, vertical areas along buildings, and if you're creative, there's a lot of space that can be used. I really get excited about mulch. Back in the States, we had the free arbor chips, or the wood chips that the tree companies, they chip up when they prune trees. And you get those big, like 15-yard, 16-yard trucks they could deliver to wherever you wanted to. It's real great to have these. We don't have this in Mexico because there's not a lot of trees here, so we don't have those arbor chips, but they could be used as mulch. And I get just excited about any organic material I can get my hands on, like weeds, charcoal, kitchen scraps. We just went to get some horse manure. It was finished product. It was already nice and aged. We got that for the garden here in the community garden. So I want to give you an example that you can do this anywhere in the city. Even you can get these systems going, these food production systems, and it can be a benefit for everybody. And just imagine if your city they used all this space on those parking nature strips between the street and the house, which a lot of the American yards have. Those could feed the whole city if they were wisely designed. So that's my share for today. Just wanted to share that. So I'll give it over to Kevin. Kevin has something to share too.
The Australian fires have to be handled by controlled burn-offs. The burn-offs cause massive devastation to the forests, causing them an inability to regenerate, and so can't provide the environment necessary for the diversity of insects, birds and animals. And so, on the edge of Daylesford, a town in Victoria, Australia, a community-created group called the Goat Hand Cooperative are involved in restoring the grassy woodlands that in turn have all the animals returning, such as the wallabies and the kangaroos. And it is these animals that are needed to maintain the woodlands. The group would discover that with goats and hand tools, you can speed up the recovery of a process that would have taken hundreds of years on its own, that it can repair far more quickly. Blackberries are very often considered problematic, but in fact, blackberries are the nurse plant. They are habitat, soil builders, and soil stabilizers. But its dominance does disable biodiversity. blackberries are so smothering because of their tendency of covering the entire forest. They can also pose a huge fire risk when they are 4 or 5 meters high. Each year the canes die back, and then the new leaves and canes grow on top, so they just keep amassing each year, and what's left in the middle is basically a tinder ready to fuel a fire. So if embers get into them, this can be a problem, and blackberries often grow up trees, so they can ignite trees also and cause crown fires, as the fires can spread up the blackberry canes to the canopy of the trees. The normal method of clearing weeds, blackberries and gorse is herbicides, using sprayers, heavy machinery, earth-moving machinery, and burn-offs. These burn-offs strip the undergrowth, so anything that's really going to take off after on the next growth are the noxious weeds. Over the years, after a burn, the blackberry and gorse come back with a vengeance, because fire often puts the weed cycle back at stage 1. The objective of the group then is to transition the forest to a more lower fire risk forest, but without destroying habitat and the ecology. They originally started by boarding down the blackberries, chopping and dropping thicker canes, but now their methods have transitioned to the use of goats, who did this work so effectively, quietly, and gently. So to manage the goats, they first selected appropriate sites. They started making pathways for the fencing, then placing the fencing and effectively creating an area for the goats to operate within. The specific goats were boar goats or boar crosses, which can pretty much survive on blackberries. They love the leaves and the fruit, and if you leave them there long enough, they will eat the canes to a degree, especially the soft shoots. The goats like other things: hawthorn, holly, broom, gorse, all the prickly things. The process takes about 3 or 4 years of goats grazing, the first year being quite intensive, in order to get these 2 to 4 meter blackberry brambles down to the ground level. Then the next year they have regrown to a certain degree, so an acre might take a month for the goat herd to completely flatten and put the brambles down to the ground level. The next year it might take 10 days, and then the following year a week, and then the following year after that just a few days. The plant life of the forest floor then returns, and the diversity then of the forest floor promotes insect diversity, and with insect diversity, small mammals have much more food, and with small mammals, you then have the return of large predatory birds, owls and raptors. Plant biodiversity equals animal biodiversity. The group are also making short films about what they are doing, telling the community about it, and getting the community involved, and so a stronger community relationship is developed, as everyone supports what benefits the community. It's a very simple interrelationship. The goats are happy as you provide them land, and the people are happy because the goats are doing work that is transforming the ecology, is moving it into its next phase of succession. So it's vital to see the importance of the natural environment in our domesticated lives. And if there is a relationship established, then people will gradually learn and become better adept in knowing how to work with the land and in harmony with it. The group's representative would say this: be a student of the living of the world, and be a participant of the living of the world. And through all the busyness and noise of our industrial culture, supporting and being in balance with the natural environment is our way back to sanity.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's this place in Berkeley, California that was a model demo for self-sustaining urban settlement. Of course, the government doesn't want you to be self-sufficient, but this house at the time, it was in the 60s, 70s, but it had chickens, it had goats, it had rabbits, and it was like a two-story, like not that big of a house, not that big of a yard, but it was all set up to be self-sustaining. It had solar and had the gray water systems, and everything was set up off grid basically. And it was a demonstration of what could be done to be self-sufficient. But of course, this is, you can't have chickens, or you can only have 3 chickens in each household, or they can't have horses or goats in normal urban environment or city environment. So that's just the condition we're living in right now. But we can create a new position with agreement. So, and the blackberries, I remember like hiking through Oregon, there's a lot of blueberries were just on the trail there. So maybe Tim, you can talk about what's going on there. I remember you must have blackberries there too, right? You had a lot of berries in Oregon, Washington.
We have the blackberries, the big ones, and we have the small ones. We have huckleberries, we have black caps, and the blueberries in the mountains. Alaska is loaded with the blueberries too. In the summer, there's low bush and high bush, and places they just cover areas for miles. But the bears, that's part of their food gorge on. One thing about the self-sustaining communities, or the trying to make the vegetables and things grow like in the cities and things, there's always the bugs to deal with, whether it's slugs, snails, or roly-polies, or the caterpillars, or there's always a very intense effort by nature to let them thrive. When a person uses like mulch, they really thrive in the damp mulch, like roly-polies and things. So a person has to, I haven't seen much about how to deal with the insects. They say there's beneficial insects, but I've never seen it to where they are able to do the job because I see many crops are totally destroyed, the cherries and things, by insects. They put out the effort and take care of them and provide it the water and things like that, but then you're have to deal with insects or certain things that they thrive on the vegetation when it's being grown.
That's the fun part, is managing these ecosystems so everybody's okay. You could say there's a balance of some sort according to your own environment. whether you have chickens, in the mulch eating the bugs, or some kind of, predator activity to control the insects, and introduce some kind of a fly or a bee or wasp or something. It's part of the fun part, trying to get these things kind of to work. It's a challenge sometimes, yeah, especially if you have an overabundance of something, some kind of insect or bug or big animal, but it can be done. It's just, that's why we're here too, to learn and educate ourselves and help others to develop something self-sustaining. What do you do? Do you have blackberries around your house? I don't remember, but you had some on the mountainside there or something?
Yeah, the blackberries grow all over in the undisturbed part of the country. They thrive real well here, and Washington too. There's lots of stuff, the salmon berries and the red huckleberries too. The thimbleberries. There's lots of things, and that's part of the natural environment too. The animals, just like the mushrooms or anything, you've got to deal with the animals that like them too. Like you can't have goats in your garden because they just eat everything.
We had goats. So we had like 2 goats. We fenced them off. We had in a weeded area. 3 days, the weeds were 3 feet tall. 3 days, they were all gone. So they need lots of room, but the eating of the blackberries, that's good. I noticed they like certain types of weeds and foods, and blackberries are one of them. Yeah. Mr. Ryan, do you have anything to share today about the environment?
This movie is so interesting about me for how to control her guardian and protect them, and control the water. The old guardian and traditional wave, not new wave, and not a new wave the government told them. All the people have a traditional way for feed the guardian, control the water, or control everything, but very energy and water and so many things wasted in this way. And it's interesting for me because some new way to teach me about how to protect better the garden, or change the weather for the for not suddenly we reduce the water and protect everything and grow something better.
Yeah, we each study our own environments, and we see what we can do. It's just each environment is unique to itself, and how we manage it is again a challenge, but it's fun to see things grow and to see it develop into something sustainable. And like in permaculture, you start with this small space and you expand outward. As you develop something, you develop your zone 1, which is the most occupied, frequently traveled area that you're going to be using a lot. You develop that and you just expand outward into more areas that you don't use as much, but are still functional. And it's again, that's one system you can use, this permaculture system, but it makes sense, and that's why we're sharing, to give people ideas here how they can do something with their own environment and help teach others too.
Yes, and when I saw this house, I suddenly remember my childhood house, because exactly the same as this house. My childhood house in a garden, and and in the yard is full of trees, and we see every animal like a dog, cat, and wolf. Sometimes a wolf in the yeah, yes, and sometimes like a big animal in there and walk around the garden and took the fruits and vegetable and go. It's very interesting for me and remember my childhood when I was in that house.
Well, as we develop the environment, then each will be having self-sustaining, so people don't, or animals don't have to like travel around, roam around as much. They have everything they need in their own environment. So each environment is in a way protected, because I don't know, the way I see it, each system will have its own, everything that's needed for each of the species that is in there. So you can roam around like a wolf or something, or a lion, but it can be managed in a way where it can develop into something. As we develop the environment and make it more natural, or help it become what it is, then everything will take care of itself. It's just wonder how nature works. You know, everything is provided by nature: medicine, food, clothing. So we just give it a chance. It can be something a lot greater than it is now. Well, it can be no greater than it is, you know, what it is, but right now we're just killing it and poisoning it, polluting it. So that doesn't make sense. Let's give it a chance here.
The bees need to have a place too in those urban areas where they don't get disturbed, so they can do their work.
Indeed. Yes. Do you have bees there? Anybody with hives nearby, Tim?
Yes, we still have some bees, and on the veterinary building across the street here, there was a swarm the other day. It wasn't a giant swarm like I used to see up on Whidbey Island in the state of Washington, where the bees would just cling on to a limb and till it about broke. They'd just be huge mounds of bees when they, I guess, are gonna go build a new place with a new queen or something. But it was good to see that there's still a swarm, even though it wasn't like I remember they used to be very plentiful and amazing how many, but this was, at least there was a swarm. I was glad to see that.
I've seen videos of bees that don't sting. They're smaller or whatever, but there's varieties that don't sting, and you can work with them. Harvest the honey and not get bothered by them. And nature is, you know, but as we are here, we're losing species all the time, every year. But if nature was allowed to do what it does, it just, there's so much that it itself does to survive, and it develops new species, new ways of new food, new fruits, new species of bees, or whatever it is. You know, it's wonderful the way it is. It'll just expand upon itself if allowed to do so.
There are mean bees and there are friendly bees. I guess they have their reasons. Some hives you can walk up to and the bees don't bother you. And other hives, if you can get near it, they'll swarm you. It's just they have, I guess it's called attitudes. Certain bees act different.
Yeah. Pays to be aware, yes.
Suddenly remember something, and bees help for a garden and farming, especially honeybees, because they have change the between the trees or flowers and carry something for a flower, help them to better grow up, and some kind of creature go away from the garden and farming. Remember my father, when he was young, he has grow and farm honeybees and make some honey. About him, he told me, we when the season changing, we go away from a place and to another place for find flower and trees for the honeybees to feed them and make some honey.
Cool. Do you have a yard now that you work in?
In this house, we have an apartment, and we have a small yard in it, but with old house, we have a very large yard, and my father grow up everything like the pistachio, like a banana, like some blueberry in the yard, some orange. It's it's very when I walk in there, and you thought it's a jungle, not a yard, because it's very tree my father put in it and grown up.
Yeah. You know, I had this image of as like a desert, but when we saw this video the other night, it was like there's like green, like jungle type areas. Like it's the southern part, there's desert part, but there's jungle type parts too.
Yes,
very green.
We have a different nature, desert, jungle. Between them, we have all nature. We have a 4 season, and when I was in the north, have a we have winter. In south, we have a warm and summer.
Persian gardens. You know anything about those?
No, just when my father work in a garden, or my grandpa work in a garden, I help them. If I something about farming, or something about how to grow tree, how to connect two tree together and grow make a new tree.
Yeah, grafting, we call it here.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here for the environmental awareness call. We end it with the NUUU, which is our connection to something real. Try it. You might like it. NUUU. Ryan? Kevin? And Tim?
NUUU.
See you all next week. Thank you for being here.